Hi, my husband was injured at work. Workman's comp didn't pay. They were screwing him around. 2 days ago, he committed suicide. His last words to me were, "Workman's comp screwed us over big time." I'm at a loss. And that was a week before his hearing. So now we have nothing. My phone number is... He was Gallagher Bassett, was the insurance company. And he was supposed to have a hearing on the 15th. He never made it for his hearing. And I miss him. Bye-bye.
The voice that you just heard was the voice of Pat Goddard of Petaluma, California, the widow of Bill Goddard, a union elevator mechanic, a husband, and a family man who took his own life on June 8, 2006, rather than face the constant barrage of denials and refusals of third-party administrator Gallagher Bassett Services to take care of his work-incurred injuries. Pat joins us today. 4 days later, another injured worker died as a result of complications with his injuries. Also joining us is Kelly Sadam of Dinuba, California, Tulare County, whose husband Robert died of a pulmonary embolism, a clot in his lungs after AIG, his employer's insurer, refused to authorize, despite pleadings from his treating physician, referral to a specialist to deal with this life-threatening problem. Robert had 100% disability and an award of lifetime medical care. Earlier this month, Mrs. Sadam testified before the Committee on Health, Safety, and Workers' Compensation in Oakland. She said that based on a conversation that she had with her 54-year-old husband, he feared that he would die of the blood clot. He stated, "I'm going to die from a blood clot. They, the insurer, want me dead because it'll save them money." She also told the DWC officials that her husband's company's workers' compensation carrier cut off all medications for 2 weeks, apparently in violation of utilization review rules. A claims examiner, not a physician, as is required under the Labor Code, ordered her husband's prescription medication benefit suspended, pending a review of his various prescriptions, she said. The Sadams paid the $500 pharmacy bill themselves for a 2-week period while they waited for Robert's pharmacy benefits to be reinstated. I'd like to introduce you, first of all, to Kelly Sadam from Dinuba, California.
Hi.
Good afternoon. And also to Pat Goddard of Petaluma, California.
Hello. Thank you.
Well, what we've seen here seems very outrageous. Let me start with you first, Pat. What led your husband to take his life?
What led him was the frequent denials, the frequent changes in the the examiners. The adjusters, and he just was not getting appropriate care. The doctor would recommend something, he would put in a request for it, and it would take 3 to 4 months sometimes to get an answer back. And then during that time, the doctor would make several requests, 3 to 4 different requests during that time, and my husband's health was going downhill quickly, and I watched that.
Now, he had a back injury?
He had a back injury, yes, October 7th, 2004.
Can you tell us how the injury occurred?
I wish I knew. It was on the job. I think it happened at an oil refinery. He was working and did something that caused the injury. He reported it timely, did all the paperwork, and he was not given the care because they denied it. That happened in October, and it was March 3rd when they gave him the denial. So all that time, there wasn't any care.
And did originally the injury was accepted by the employer? There was no...
The employer, I don't know, accepted it. He filled out the paperwork.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's good. And
Yeah.
if the employer
He reported it.
reports it, then
Mm-hmm.
they accept the injury.
Mm-hmm.
They have a certain period of time to investigate to verify whether it was indeed arose out of employment.
Through their investigation, the letter my husband got from Janine Fowler, who was the the adjuster. She denied it because she says there was no case for it. There was no claim.
In other words, they stated that they felt that they didn't have any culpability.
Exactly.
That happens every day, and
you've heard that story before.
We've heard that story so many times that it's just totally unbelievable. Let me switch over here to Kelly. Kelly, how did Robert's injury occur? Now, this is kind of an unusual occupation that your husband was in.
Well, he was a helicopter mechanic for 26 years. He was the mechanic. His last job was with the California Highway Patrol. He was the chief mechanic in Fresno for their helicopter, and was working on their helicopter. He was a contract mechanic working on their helicopter, and we used to joke it was his mistress because he spent more time with it than he did with us and the family, because it was his love. He loved to go to work. That was, and he got unfortunately injured on the job. It's hard because he always wanted to go back. That was his goal, was to get back to work. And instead he ended up 100% disabled. Numerous surgeries.
This was for a shoulder injury?
A neck and back injury. Mostly his neck. His neck ended up collapsing. He ended up with 2 titanium rods in his neck, a plate, and 16 screws holding his neck up.
Yikes.
He had took numerous medications, became addicted to the medications. He took as many as 10 or more. Subsequently developed seizures from the medications and a blood clot. Our attorney, I couldn't understand why he was in such a hurry to get his case finalized in 2003, and now I understand why. Because since that time we have done nothing but fight. Not that we didn't before that, but it became just a battle with trying to get care for him, which I believe is subsequently why he died.
During this period of time, were there any emotional problems that he went through? Depression?
Oh, I can't tell you the number of times he told me that he just wanted to walk in front of a car. He wanted, he didn't want to fight anymore. He didn't want the battles, and he didn't want the pain. And it would be easier for him. But he knew if something happened to him, the kids and I would be left with nothing.
Now, I'm to understand that AIG, when they cut off his medication, in this particular instance, a medication called Coumadin, which is a blood thinner.
Correct.
And they just totally refused this. Now, this was not done by a physician. This was done by a claims examiner, an untrained person, not a physician as required by the law and the labor code. Ordered her husband's prescription held up pending review. Do you feel that that might have caused the clot that he had to worsen and eventually take his life as it did?
Quite possibly. I don't know. I'm not a doctor. But logically, to me, how can you stop somebody's prescriptions, things that he's taken for a very long time and are medically necessary? How can you just stop them? I've learned so much, unfortunately, since he passed away, about the medical profession and about rules and regulations that pertain, to this, and how they're not allowed to do this. They're not allowed to cut off their medications. I was so scared. I ran right down and got the medications because I didn't want him to be without them. How can you just stop medications? I was shocked. They'd done things before, but I'm not going to fill his medications because I want to find out who's prescribing what and for what reason.
Well, it's real easy for them to do that.
Well, that's what I understand. And
when you're a number, and
exactly.
they don't treat you as a human being.
Exactly.
Pat, now, interesting thing about Pat is a registered nurse. And let me ask you a question, Pat. As a registered nurse, if you were working in a hospital and a doctor said, Mr. Jones here needs so many cc's of Coumadin, and you said, well, I don't think he does, and I'm not going to give it to him, what would happen to you?
I'd be walked off the floor and not invited back into any medical practice or facility again. I'd lose my license.
And an insurance company can do this and just skate.
Oh, then I think I'll go work for an insurance company then.
It's unbelievable.
How can they get away with it?
They are.
They are getting away with it. They're getting people playing God and deciding who they can see, what they can get in their medications. Makes a phone call and says they're going to cancel one of his doctor's appointments because he has too many for that month, that he might miss one. Who are they? We've waited 4 to 6 months for these appointments to get him to the doctors that he needs to see. And now they're going to cancel one because she feels he has too many? I had up to 9 appointments a week for this man and made them. I could probably count on one hand the number of appointments that we either missed or he ended up in the hospital and we missed him. But not just to blow him off or to... we were in shock, and my husband pleaded with her, and I can still hear his voice, pleading with her on the phone to not cancel that appointment, that he would be there. He didn't care what. He was going to make his appointments. But it was something we went through all the time. The stress and the fight with them constantly.
Something that injured workers all over the state go through. Pat, can you give me a little more detail as to what happened in Bill's case and the frustrations that your family went through?
My husband is a very private man, and he liked to keep some of his care to himself, and he was able to drive himself early on to some of his appointments. I didn't start going with him until things were denied and the insurance company, or Gallagher Bassett, third-party administrator, was stating that the doctor wasn't providing enough information. So I accompanied him to his doctor, who's the renowned Kenneth Light. Kenneth Light dotted his
Here in San
I's,
Francisco,
yes, dotted I's, crossed those T's, and he showed me the paperwork up front. And then, so that's when I started getting involved. So I missed early on how his treatments. But I knew the treatment, whatever treatment he was getting or lack of, it wasn't working. He couldn't return to work, do his job. Life at home was starting to fall apart. Do you know that honey-do list I could never even suggest? He wasn't my soulmate anymore. His soul was very heavy. He wasn't really my partner anymore because he was in pain. The pain and the frustration that Gallagher Bassett caused for him was very stressful on him. He couldn't handle the stress anymore. It was starting to work on me. I was working full-time. I went to part-time. We had to start asking people to repair little things about the house. If I had a flat tire, I had to call a service. Little things like that. The impact was so profoundly large and getting mountainous and larger, and the bills starting to mount up, that I couldn't hide it anymore from this man. Especially when he stopped work, he had to retire. And then he was home all the time, and then he saw just the impact his workman's comp injury had on him and his family.
Gallagher Bassett, is supposed to comply with laws of the labor code. From a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the best and 1 being the worst, how would you rate them?
There is no rating for that type of administrator. It would be in the negative area.
That bad?
Yes. It was, I think, to the point that they're liable. They're liable for my husband taking his life. They're liable for the other gentleman that they were administrating for that took his life.
Yeah, this is not the first time that Gallagher Bassett has been accused of causing an injured worker to take his life. As we recall, back in 2004, there was the story of David Michael Tracy of Antioch, California, that worked for Waste Management Incorporated, and he had a big tree trunk fall out of one of the debris boxes that he was emptying, and it caused him a case of RSDS, reflex sympathetic dystrophy syndrome, which can be very, very brutal and cause a lot of pain. Some people have said it like a hot poker is being stuck through your skin. They refused, similar case, pain management, therapy. They refused the attorney and the physician's pleas to send him to Stanford to get some type of care. They refused psychiatric and psychological care. That's a big issue that a lot of injured workers have. These insurance companies, by their refusal to take care of these medical conditions, will take a person who's running on all 8 cylinders, and by the time they're through with them, if he's lucky if he's running on 4 or 5 cylinders, they literally cause so many emotional problems, and then have the audacity to refuse to clean their messes up. And what they expect is that Medicare or Medi-Cal will pick up the cost of trying to make these people whole again. It happens day in, day out. I hear so many stories from so many injured workers who started out as functional human beings, and by the time they get to the end of a claim, or in the case of some of these claims, they don't end. They take their lives, and we end up with statistics of people that could have been very functional human beings, functional parts of society, that no longer are able to do anything. It's just something that's just totally outrageous. This is how Governor Schwarzenegger has reformed workers' compensation. I don't think so. Kelly, after the original injury, were the doctor's reports sent to the insurance company?
Oh,
on a regular basis?
Regular basis. And you know, if it wasn't, they were changing adjusters, and then we had an excellent doctor, excellent like yours, who managed his case, and, you know, yeah, I can't say enough for him, and I know in my heart that he did everything he could for my husband. The one that failed him was workers' comp, their system, the insurance company, all the way down the line. I mean, how can you have a signed stipulation giving this man the medical treatment, lifetime medical treatment, and then withhold it from him? How can you do that? How can they agree to something and then, no, we're not going to do it, or it'll take, you know, it takes 6 months, or we're just going to cancel all of your medications. How can you do that to somebody? They've sat down, they've signed a legal document. They're supposed to be providing this to him. But instead, they made his life hell. They caused him so much stress that not only did he have his injuries, but he had the additional stress, aggravation, brought on by the insurance company not taking care of the bills. Your credit gets ruined. You lose your cars. Your family life becomes totally ruined. You get, they have no idea the devastation it does to the families, to the worker itself. I mean, I tried to take most of it on and tried to do the fighting because I didn't want it. I could see it was taking the toll on him, and you can only keep so much from him, and you can't hide it forever.
The answer to that question is very simple. There is no enforcement of the laws, no enforcement whatsoever. If an injured worker says, I can't, I don't, or I won't, and they find out differently, boom, you're in jail in a New York minute. Yet, an insurance company can make all form of false and misleading statements, and the powers that be in the government, the State Department of Insurance, the Fraud Assessment Commission, they totally just ignore it. As a matter of fact, injured workers on the 20th of this month went to the Fraud Assessment Commission meeting, which is normally held in obscurity, and they demanded that the Fraud Assessment Commission, which is headed by William Zachary, who is the workers' compensation head of Safeway stores, and there's a conflict of interest in itself. You have a workers' comp bureaucrat handing out money to prosecute fraud. And these injured workers were quite upset and quite irate. But again, they placed Mr. Zachary on notice that they're not going to put up with this anymore. And you're probably going to see a lot of picketing, a lot of demonstrating against these insurance companies, because injured workers are not going to stand for this anymore. They participated in a social contract back 100 years ago. And what's happening is the insurance companies are not keeping their part of that bargain. The insurance companies have indemnification against their tort suits, civil suits, yet injured workers have not received their part of the bargain. How do they say it in Latin? Quid pro quo, something for something. Well, the insurance industry has been getting something, and injured workers have been getting nothing. And, one death, one unneeded death of an injured worker is one too many. In closing, Pat,
yes,
what are your thoughts?
My thoughts are, if you have an injured significant other, please get involved. Know what's going on and become involved. Try to go through the legal system navigate it as good as you can, as well as you can.
Kelly?
Absolutely. You have to get involved. You have to, at least in these days, you have to fight for everything. Get help, but understand the system. I unfortunately am understanding it more now, but it's too late for my husband. He told me, he goes, I'm better off dead, and they're trying to kill me off because it'll be cheaper for them, and that's what happened to him.
And the reality is?
We're both widows.
It will.
Yeah.
And it will, if you don't. I mean, you've got to get involved. You've got to follow your case, whatever it is, how minute or how huge it is. You have to get involved.
We need some friends in Sacramento to force some accountability. The governor says there are laws that cover a variety of situations, yet what he does not tell you is he doesn't enforce them. None of these laws are being enforced. And that's got to stop, because if something isn't done about it, injured workers are banding together, they're talking to one another, and they're going to rise up. And let me just put it to you this way, folks. It's not going to be pretty. I'm Sam Gold, and you're watching Injured on the Job. Thank you.